Okay.
I'm Lucille Lawler.
Yeah,
Gallatin County.
we'll know that.
Okay. Anyway, in before 1814, there were people that were squatting on land and had made improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So they got a chance to buy that land, and it's called a preemption thing. So anything that's dated in this book on Shawneetown Land District records, 1814 to 1820 by Laurel Vocal, if it's before October the 1st, it's supposed to have been preemption rights. They came in and said, now I've cleared this land and this is mine. But if they sat out there and didn't come in and record, then whoever got in the office and put the money down for that land went out there and put them out.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been that way. This is why the cutoff date, October the 3rd, in 18 and 14, all these in-lots in Shawneetown, it seems to be recorded on that date. There's the day that this is the first open where new people could come in.
Oh, I see.
And they already, I believe I would agree with you, they must have had them already record of them, and they'd already been paying their money.
Well, now, is that your phone here?
Paying attention to it.
Okay.
Because we're not supposed to be open.
The Illinois Library's issue of last spring has two or three articles in it by Mr. Haynes.
Maybe I should.
All right, fine. We'll just hold this for a moment. Interview was stopped for a few minutes while Mrs. Lawler answered the phone.
Better, he wanted me. He knew my voice. I couldn't have fooled him.
What I was going to say was that south of the 39th parallel, and I'm sure that would include this area, Mr. Haynes has done, finally located those preemption. There's an 1807 preemption list and an 1813 preemption list in which those that were south of that line in Illinois could submit their claims to particular land. So there might be someone in that list that would be of interest to you.
Right.
But
I was just looking then in the list for 1106. And
now 1106 is what
the bank,
now?
where the bank is sitting.
The Shawneetown Bank, the big one.
Big 5 column.
Okay.
1106, according to this paper, was recorded on October the 3rd, 1814, as were all the lots almost all through this area that's close to the river. Actually the business district. And it was bought by James W-I-E-R, I thought it was the other way, Greenville, Kentucky, for $52.50 in lot 1106. And he bought the 105 for $28.75. 105 was behind the bank. We're talking about up there, I said it was at this little bank, but James Wire bought where your big bank is. He was the first, according to this.
I see.
But I do not have the record who went next.
So 1106 and 1105 lots are the ones where...
Right, that's the one you're looking at. And I think you're interested in the 1107 next door. Was that where the digging was done? Or was it done in the back part of the bank?
Well, they did. Most of the digging was done on the kind of the north corner, it would be. That.
Okay.
Where the old stables were, evidently.
That's what I figured, in the outhouse, because they mentioned it. And they had a very interesting article either as in Outdoor Illinois or in our local paper, saying all these interesting things that they found. But they named no names. You begin wondering, I wonder who were using these. You know, they named shoes and things like that. And they never ventured who might have lived there. So I'm thinking that you might be interested in 1107 next door, too. So 1107 next door was bought by John Caldwell. And he's listed from Shawneetown. And 1108 was Michael Sprinkle. And Michael Sprinkle only paid for, wait till I look at these right straight across. 1108 was John Caldwell. 1107 was John Caldwell. And Michael Sprinkle had 1109. He was on up the street, we'll call it, going north. We'll call this north, even though it's going northeast. Okay. And John Caldwell paid $19 for 1108, and he paid $19 1107. And that James Wire, if it's a corner lot, they paid $52.50, and the one behind it was 1105. It's on the Route 13 now, right behind.
Would that be across the alley or short of the alley next to the bank?
I think it had to be, I have the map of it. And it had to be right behind it. Because here we have, now where it says bank.
See, this is the bank.
Okay.
I see, there's 1105. Okay.
It's a very big lot. When they laid out the town, they were huge lots, I call them, on the side streets, on each block. And then they'd go little narrow, long strips. But often in the transfers, it's always talking about 27 feet off of lot 1106, or he'll say 79 feet off of lot 706. And somebody else was owning those part of the time. But I think it was interesting that John Caldwell was next door because he was the receiver of the land office, and he had a log land office
at that location.
I would
presumably.
That's what we are presuming to a point. But he served from 1814 to 1835. And I find it very interesting that he is a receiver of the land office because he's married to Sarah Badollet.
How do you spell Badollet?
Badollet. Her father was the receiver or register up at the land office in Vincennes. And they were all appointed through the influence of Albert Galton, who was this Badollet and Albert Galton were schoolmates over in Switzerland. They were boyhood friends. And they both came to Pennsylvania, and Albert Galton became Secretary of Treasury, possibly under Thomas Jefferson. And he asked that his friend, after he came over to Pennsylvania, he asked that his name was John Badollet, be appointed for land office fella out here in Vincennes. So out he comes real early, 1804 it's opened. And his daughter was, he told how beautiful she was, because I have a book on the letters that Albert Galton wrote to John Badollet. That's a very thick book. And then Badollet would write letters to Albert Galton. And he told how his beautiful daughter had married John Caldwell, who had come up. John Caldwell worked up there in the Badollet office while John went back to visit back in Pennsylvania. He bragged on John Caldwell being such a fine fellow, and I think he was a lawyer too. Anyway, Sarah married him, and they got themselves appointed down here, and he served from 1814 to 1835. And then Stephen Rowan, R-O-W-A-N, and that Rowan family came from my old Kentucky home. Over in Bardstown, Kentucky, where my old Kentucky home was written by Stephen Foster, and the Judge Rowan there was his uncle.
He was Stephen Foster's uncle.
Yes, and it's very interesting to note. You won't want to record this, but we have a home here in Shawneetown that Pauline Logston lives on out here. That was at one time marked the public square. I said it's up on top of the hill. That's patterned after my old Kentucky home.
I see. I'll be doggone.
Maybe you'll get to interview her.
One thing, you've mentioned John Caldwell here now. Do you recall his being related to the bank in any way?
No, I don't.
There was a Caldwell that apparently held the records of the bank in 1840, the mid-1840s, when it went into receivership. And I was wondering if...
Now look, he died in 1835. We make a note of that. He died I'd say died. I'm not sure there. I've got cemetery records in Gallatin County. But Stephen Round served as a receiver. He's taken in the money, 1835 to 1845. And then William Caldwell, 1855 to 56, that's when they closed the thing down. They had a little trouble getting it really wound down, according to the articles in that local record that we have. And the register, the one that was doing all the registering of the land office, was Thomas Slew, 1814 to 1829. And that fellow I find especially interesting because I keep running into his coming to Shawneetown. He was of an old Dutch family, and they lived in Pennsylvania, and then he came to Cincinnati. And he was a merchant there, and he finally moved into Kentucky, and that's where some of the Slew, Thomas Slew, let's see, there's a Thomas Slew and a Thomas Slew Jr. So we don't want to get them mixed up. I have a card that shows exactly how they go. But anyway, the Thomas Slew then was going, but this is the older one that was married to Elizabeth Rowe. And I think this first Thomas Slew was born about 1764, and Thomas Slew Jr., who came to Shawneetown, was born in 1794. And here, now I'm on to it. This, here it is, Thomas Slew and Elizabeth Rowe. This first Slew was the son of William Slew of New York City. They removed to Cincinnati, Ohio, and from there to Mason County, Kentucky. They returned to Cincinnati and finally located at Shawneetown, where he was registered at the U.S. Land Office. So that was the one that was born about 1764. His son, Thomas Slew Jr., was born April 1790 at Washington, Kentucky, was a candidate for governor of Illinois in 1826. He got beat by Ninian Edwards by a very few votes. And it's interesting because they said there's another goofy-like fella from Shawneetown. I don't know whether the Hubbards would feel very flattered, but there was an Adolphus Hubbard that ran against him. And here are two fellows from the same area running against Ninian Edwards, he was really a smooth fellow and very influential, a very good talker. And Thomas Slew was very well thought of, but he would have beat Ninian Edwards, who was very popular, if it hadn't been for this Adolphus Hubbard. But anyway, that's how important that Slew was. But Shawneetown registered the U.S. Land Office, and I'm also interested why they ever laid out such a big town here and why they built such a big bank. And I think a lot of questions, people, especially visitors, come in and they look at this bank and they wonder, what in the world did anybody ever put up a building like that, and what do they think they're going to have? And you really have to do some you just conjecture.
The settlement pattern.
Yes, and you wonder who was influential enough in Washington, D.C. And I find in reading about Thomas Slew, when I read, this was about the English settlement, when George Flower and Birkbeck, when they were coming with, and they had this gal along, there's each one trying to decide who's going to marry her, This whole party met Thomas Slew in Cincinnati, and he showed them how to get over here to the big prairie they was going to, they had, earlier, George Flower, he'd come in the area and he had found out about the good land in Illinois, and then he went on back and stayed with Thomas Jefferson the whole winter. So we'll say Thomas Jefferson knew about the area too, and certainly William Henry Harrison did, because he's doing this appointing. William Henry Harrison was the governor of Indiana, and he was appointing Slew and different people in here for these offices, Caldwell. And So I think it had to be somebody that was very influential in Washington that would want to lay out a town the size that Shawneetown is. But they were lucky to find Thomas Slough, but I suppose they all stopped at very small taverns. And Thomas Slough, when you read here, it said that he returned to Cincinnati and finally located. He had bad business connections, they said, in Cincinnati, because I have the Slough family history, and said that he had reverses, and he went back to Cincinnati in 1819. That's the day that he was coming out with Flower and Birkbeck and all these gals. Birkbeck brought his 19-year-old daughter, 16, 14-year-old son, and a young boy, 13, and a cousin of George Flower's. And he asked this Miss, is the neighbor gal that was coming with him, 25 years old, he asked her to marry, and she turned the old fella down, who was about 55. And farther on their trip, when they were coming across Ohio and Indiana, George Flower asked her to marry. I don't know they all asked on the same trip, but she accepted and married George Flower in Vincennes, and Birkbeck gave her away as father of the bride. But he wouldn't talk to George Flower after that, and they built two towns, Waynesboro and Albion. But Thomas Slough, then they came to a fork in the road, and about 2/3 of the way across Indiana, and the Flower and Birkbeck crew went to Vincennes area and across to the English Prairie, and Thomas Slough came to Shawneetown. But that was 1819. He'd already sold all these, he was already in business here. He'd already been selling all this land. So we'll have to say Shawneetown, I would say that they had connections with, they knew, and especially Thomas Jefferson. I think, I'm not sure, my granddaughter borrowed my best history book. I couldn't even tell you when Thomas Jefferson was president. But Monroe, Thomas Jefferson was out in Monroe and right in this area. But I'm thinking that Shawneetown was laid out in 1810. And it's supposed to be laid out by the federal government. And it was, I think it was laid out, then again, we haven't even mentioned the salt. I think that the salt was the big commodity here, and the U.S. government was getting the commission. And it amounted to, thousands of dollars a year. And this is the early time when it was really productive. I have a thesis that is written on the Saline salt wells. And that fellow said that the big production, it never amounted to too much after 1818, when as soon as the state of Illinois, when they got hold of the salt, see, they took over the salt well. As soon as 1818, okay, the salt rents all go up to Springfield. Well, it seemed to me there were a lot of reverses, and somebody didn't have enough water, and somebody said they needed the rental to expand the wells, and they weren't pouring much money into Springfield, but it was going up. I associated being as white gold before 1818, and Isaac White was one of the first agents over there, and he's the one married John Marshall's. John Marshall's wife's sister. They both married Leach girls. And the Leaches, of course, the first George Leach came from Ireland, and he was over in, they lived about New Jersey. He and his brother were orphans and landed there with some friends. And he married the Oxa. You run into Achshah. All girls, they named them Oxa. I've never heard such a funny name, but Oxa Applegate. And George Leach and Oxa came to Vincennes, and they had such beautiful daughters that John Marshall came over from Ireland, and he was going to settle in an uncle's estate, John Brady, and had 790 acres. And so he saw Amy Leach, and he was on his way back to Ireland. She'd give him, he had sort of taken a liking to her, and she to him, and she'd given him some little card. And they were very religious people, you know, and a little prayer or something. And he had almost gone, so the story goes, I'm not sure how much true, but he was almost ready to get back on the boat. And he pulls out the card and looks at it and turns around, comes back to Vincent's and marries Amy. So Amy, then Myra, really. Myra Leach married John Marshall. And I'm supposed to know when they married. About 1806, I think. And Isaac White, who was making a mint in salt over here at Equality, which is only about 12 miles, maybe it's that. And he had John Marshall, according to the Leach family history, he had John Marshall, they were brother-in-laws now. Harriet Leach married Isaac White. So he had his brother-in-law come over and help him at the salt works. But the way the story goes in Shawneetown, that John Marshall, he was looking for a place for a store or he had to sell merchandise, and he came to Shawneetown, looked very likely, and so he decided to set up a store here. So I don't know, it's one of the stories, but that's both versions. But anyway, John Marshall then, of course, finally opened up one of the first stores and is on the lot where you turn to go up, where we used to go across the ferry. He's the farthest down this street.
I see.
On that corner, on that lot, was John Marshall's store. And he had everything under the sun, and he was also selling to all these little country stores.
Oh, wholesale.
There weren't that many, but okay, there weren't country stores. They'd go, you know, they were coming here in wagons, and as far as Galatia, that was the old town. There wasn't any Harrisburg or El Dorado then. There was Galatia or Carmi. He was sort of wholesale place too. But the big thing why he thought that you needed a bank, I think, was on account of the land office. Because how were they handling all that gold and silver? And the men were carrying it in big leather pouches, paying for all this land and also the salt. Salt was used as a commodity, as was the deer skin. That's where they got the word buck, you know. They'd throw their deer skins up on the counter. So John Marshall, and I'd say Michael Jones was another. I have made a lot of study on the early banking here, but I would say that John Marshall and Michael Jones, with John Rives maybe as the cashier.
John, what was that name? Rives?
R-I-V-E-S. I need to look in my book that I've written.
Right, that's all right.
Well, we'll correct it later. But I think he was the cashier. So there is a question, too, whether that first bank that opened in 1816, whether it, I think official records will say this is a log bank. But the descendants of this house, of this brick home that John and Amara Marshall came to, they always say this was the original, that he built this. I kind of doubt it could possibly been built when these great-grandchildren said it was built in 1812. The one that owned this lot, 1160, the very first time it was recorded was 1160, was owned by a fellow I never heard of, James L. Petty from Shawneetown, paid $152.50 for lot 1160. And 1159 is out here next to the street. The 1160 was, there used to be a street run. Here's the front of the place.
The levee then.
The levee was the front street, or Water Street. And because it faced the street, and of course the highway then was the river. And the important thing, there was no levee. And so the front of the house really faced east. Everybody comes in the west door now, but it's really the front of this house faced there. Yeah. And they opened the bank in 1816. That's official. But whether it's actually in this house may be questioned.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question on
Okay,
now the commissioners for that bank in 1816 were John Marshall, David Apperson, Samuel Hayes, Leonard White, and Samuel R. Campbell.
Okay.
Do you know any of those?
Okay, Apperson had a store here, and Apperson, here we have this picture up here, a print of Audubon. And Audubon, over at the Audubon Museum in Henderson, Kentucky, see, he was living over there, and his wife Lucy was taking care of the store while he ran through the woods painting all the pictures and became famous. So we have a print here, and in the museum in Henderson, they have a note of Apperson at Old Shawneetown, and it's he had either bought something or that's the only connection I know. And that was then, of course, Leonard White. He was one of the first here too, and he served as a clerk.
White?
Not that anybody knows. We just I have the beginnings of the White family, and they don't name Leonard White, and hardly anybody in the county can trace him.
Okay, how about Samuel Hayes?
No, I don't. But he's in our 5-county history, and he's mentioned he'll be in court proceedings. He was a resident here, and evidently, let me check real fast and see if he bought some land in the Hayes. And Samuel on page 22. Okay, Samuel Hayes, wow. He bought, on September the 25th, 18 and 15, he was in Shawneetown and paid $2, and it doesn't say what he bought. Look, see how it goes blank?
Blank.
And everything else. But you know what $2 look like? That's what they paid for some of those lots. And a very inexpensive one. The very inexpensive ones went $2, but if they were on the corner up on Business Square, the bank never paid $152 for theirs. And the other fellow,
Samuel R. Campbell.
Some of the Campbells married into the Posey family.
No.
Let's see if Campbell was here. He better be. Samuel. Okay, Samuel R. is on page 59. And Samuel R. Campbell. Okay. He on July the 4th, 1818, his residence was Shawneetown, Illinois, but it's township. He paid $16 on the southwest section 30, 5 south, 9 east. And 5 south, that's 5 on the map. You find it's, I've looked at these. 5 south, he was in White County. And did I say 9 east?
Yeah.
He's in White County on the northern section part of it. That's where he is right there. So Camel then evidently bought land there. Okay, he bought some more too. He's got some more. If you're interested, I'll look it up. Camel. Samuel R. 65. See what else he bought. This is a later date. Samuel R. He on August 10, 1818, of Shawneetown, Illinois, he paid $74.20. Southwest. He's paying another payment. Is all.
Oh, I see.
Southwest section 30, 5 south, 9 east. That's the same place. He's paying on that quarter section, southwest 30, and probably the next one was Camel. But I know a Camel's married because in the Posey plot out at the Westwood Cemetery. There's one of the Poseys married to Tamil. That's the only, connection that I know. And
Okay, now, let's see, the officers then of this bank where we are now, the Marshall Bank, were John Marshall, Michael Jones, and John Rides.
What's that last name?
Rides, did you say? John Rides?
R-I-V-E-S.
V.E. Rides,
Yes.
Okay.
That's the, you'll hear her name because she was the only one of the Marshall family that lived around here for a long time. Was Amira Eddie Witterhall. And that'll be Elizabeth Taylor's aunt.
Oh, I see.
Okay, she was the Eddie because John Marshall's had 6 children. And their oldest daughter, I've got the list of it.
Amira was an Eddie, you say? Or
she was, yes. But it was Henry Eddy married one of the daughters of John Marshall, Elizabeth. And they had a son, and Amira was the daughter, and Elizabeth, see it goes down the line through the oldest daughter, Elizabeth married Henry Eddy. And there were 3 daughters and 3 sons anyhow. I think there were more, but we just, at first, we didn't get... He bought Samuel R. Camel of Shawneetown on September the 5th, 1818. Paid $64 on the northeast section of northeast section 24 of Township 3 East, 3 South. He's in Wayne County now, and 8 East. So he bought in 8 East in Wayne County, and he was going close to the Edwards. Here's where Edwards County, where the flour and so he was out west of them.
Now, however, it indicated his residence was in Shawneetown.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, okay. So
they bought land. You should see where Michael Jones bought. He bought all the way to Carroll almost. Oh, he was, of course, a millionaire. He really had lots of land, and I have correspondence with his great-grandson, Wayne Jones, down in Houston, Texas, who is very wealthy right now. And I have the Docker family history and the Michael Jones family history.
Okay. Let's see. Insofar as you know, other than those 3, John Marshall, Michael Jones, and John Rives, were there any other officers of the bank before it phased out in 1823?
Not that I know that. I really haven't made a lot of study out of it at all. I feel like I've done a lot on the John Marshall family and the Michael Jones. But now here's John Rives. John C. Rives. And here it is, R-I-V-E-S. On June the 1st, 1820, he paid $2 on in-lot 599. And in-lot 599 it's a little surprising.
Here.
Okay. No, that isn't. But anyway, in-lot, I think they lost money on some of these lots that they bought, surely, because they went way out, and nothing was ever developed out here. They finally farmed it. All these outlots, this was all farmed, we speak of. But in lot 599, well, he wasn't too far out of town. Here he is. Here he is.
Back away from the waterfront, though.
Yes. Here's the courthouse, and he was
I see.
he was about where the boat thing is, and a lot just 2 streets back.
Right out 13.
Yes,
And then to the left.
where the boat is, and then it's a block or 2 back. Now, John Rives bought that lot and paid $2. Now, I don't know. He might have had a home there
Right.
by 1820 because the bank, he was supposed to be in a cashier here, and 1869. And he was supposed to have slept on the barrel with a gun, you know.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, and we got the barrel downstairs, one like it, I mean.
Yeah, the lady showed me the other day when I came.
Oh, you've already been good.
Wonder, could we skip on to the 1835 era now?
If I know anything about it.
Well, now, with John Marshall now, he was still living in this house in 1835, I guess, when he got interested in the big bank down here.
Yes.
And let's see, what was his wife's name now? Amira?
Amira.
How do you spell Amira?
A-M-I-R-A. A-M-I-R-A.
Okay.
Amira.
Okay. Now, and of course, John, how do you pronounce Siddle?
Siddle, maybe.
Siddle, okay.
Because I see them spell it S-I-D-D-L-E. But I think it's S-I-D-D-A-L-L.
Yes, officially it is. He signed it that way, yes.
Yes, but see, the people that were taking census, they'd spell it S-I-D-D-L-E, and you can kind of tell how the thing was pronounced the way they spelled.
I see.
That's why I say it's Siddle. Okay.
Now, do you have any information on that family?
On the Siddles.
Siddles.
The only thing I haven't made any, I've seen marriage records, and I have them like of his sister maybe. There's an Anna Siddle. I couldn't tell you who she married right now, but I run into the name some, and we'll look here and see what Siddle bought. If he is here and bought it real fast, but he might not have been here in 1820. See, this stops. No. He didn't purchase, that early. But I copied, I can tell you when he came. With buying, if he bought land, we think they all got real interested in buying land. They might not have. And I also associate that name with equality. I think that it finally, he must have...
moved to...
Yes.
Well, he moved to
Here.
Cairo, we know.
Did he? But I have John Siddle land 1833. You can find that record in the land records in the courthouse. And I possibly have it written down, but it won't take time to look it up. But I've got it down telling what section he bought. But it's in Equality Township.
Okay.
And then there's a William Siddle, 1832, so it looked like it could have been his brother, unless, I don't know. Of course, there is such thing that a father and a son bought together later in life.
How about E.H. Gatewood? He was supposed to be one of the directors for the stockholders.
Okay. He married in the Ridgway family.
Oh.
And did you ever see so many names looked up?
That's what I'm trying to get organized here a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to give you this sheet that George Ridgway's gave.
Jim Allen would like to get a copy of that. So.
Okay. Because here's the first John Ridgway, and of course he came to Shawneetown, but he's up in Carmi to start with, and that's where Thomas Ridgway was born in Carmi.
Oh.
And so the oldest daughter, this is a half-sister of Thomas Ridgway's, Elizabeth, married Ephraim Gatewood. And I'm pretty sure that it was...
Now, about what year would that have been?
Okay. Elizabeth Olden. Well, John Ridgway was born in 1784. And he died in 1842. And I've got, the mother of this gal died in 1819. Elizabeth's mother died in 1819, and John Ridgway married Thomas Shannon's Ridgway's mother then, who was a Grant, came from Scotland. They were in White County. So, that Ephraim Gatewood had a big store here, though. And I've read his, and I've got his probate records. And
I wonder if he was a son then of E.H. Gatewood, you suppose?
We're talking about, Oh, I thought they were the same people.
Well, it's listed as E.H. Gatewood in the director's list.
Okay, but Ephraim, I thought maybe the same guy. I don't know.
Yeah, it could well be, I guess. I have no indication.
But okay, there's a William J. Gatewood then that was in the legislature. And I'm going to be writing on them. The next book I'm writing is going to have all about the Posies and Ridgewoods. I hate to even mention. I hear somebody wanting to tour the bank.
Yeah. Want to stop?
What time is it? You want to?
It's 10 after. We're about to get to this side of the tape anyway. We can turn it over. Okay.
Okay. That last name was...
We were looking at E.H. Gatewood, which is probably Ephraim Gatewood then.
Yeah, I want to see what... I'm so glad he has this. Gatewood. Oh, gosh. DJ. I think it's Daniel there. But the Gatewood family... I find very interesting too because I'm going to write about them. But William J. Gatewood served in the legislature and was a good friend of Abraham Lincoln's. And when he died, Abraham Lincoln was the one announced. He died, I think, 1830. I don't know whether this be these people. I'm wondering if it's Ephraim's son. See, I haven't made any study on that. And I've even looked at the probate records, and I can't tell you right off because I've got too many going in my head now. But anyway, William J.'s son was called J. Gatewood, and he went out west. And you talk about somebody having a colorful life. He fought in a duel and he killed somebody, and then he started the San Diego newspaper. And I have the newspapers where they have all about his life, but they wondered how in the world, I think he was a lawyer. William Gatewood was a lawyer and had law books in the home. It wasn't too much trouble to be a lawyer in those days because they study under somebody, and the first thing you know, they are a lawyer. Here it is, G.W. Ellie and D.J. Gatewood, and evidently White County, but see, it didn't ditto right there. But they bought 1 South 7 East, and that's way up in Wayne County.
Okay.
I think that was, okay, he wasn't mentioned there. I can tell you if he's in the... if he's buried in the county, pretty much. I don't, okay, 52. He's buried in Westwood Cemetery. Some Gatewood, I'm not sure which one it's going to be.
Okay.
It's on 52 Gatewood. You'll be the one that, well, it's Elizabeth. Okay, that gives her birth date, and you'll know 1776. Oh, shoot. This one's different. 1835, consort of William. And see, we've got Elizabeth Ridgway marrying Ephraim Gatewood, and it's a grandnephew down here that listed these. But then maybe you can put both, have it as a question there. And Eleanor was the first daughter, 1829. Elizabeth was the second daughter. Mary was the third daughter. So...
now this was of the Gatewoods.
That's Elizabeth Gatewood, 1776 to 1835, consort of William. That might be on the monument too.
I see.
But I've got his record, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
You keep talking and I'll look.
Okay, I'm just wondering if any of those directors, any of their family was still around. There apparently are some connections. The next name on the list is Alexander Kirkpatrick. Does that strike a bell?
Well, Alexander Kirkpatrick married the oldest daughter here. Wait, I said a while ago that he married Henrietta. The second daughter married Henrietta, and the oldest daughter married Alexander Kirkpatrick. That was the son-in-law of John Marshall.
I see. Okay.
And Alexander Kirkpatrick, I'll give you his birth date and death. Might help a little bit. Well, I've got it here too. Elizabeth, this is Amy Leach, was born in 1787, married John Marshall. Elizabeth, born 1807, married Alexander Kirkpatrick, who was born, that isn't right. She wouldn't marry a man that much younger. Now look at this. Kirkpatrick. Oh, I've got two on, there's two different Kirkpatricks, 55. Eliza J. Kirkpatrick. You can ask me something else while I'm looking it up if you want.
Well, the next name is W.A. Docker.
Well, we know lots about William Docker because he came from England. And I've got all of his, I've got the whole family history. And he had 2 wives. Yeah.
I see. Into which family? Did he marry into the Ridgway family?
Okay, William A. Docker's daughter Jane married Thomas Shannon Ridgway.
Oh, Jane Ridgway. I see.
Jane, yes. You heard all about Jane's nice home yesterday.
Yes.
And William A. Docker was really a big merchant here, and he was president of the town council, whatever they had. Some people call it he was mayor. I don't think they called it that, but he was when Lafayette came.
Oh, I see. 1825 then.
1825, he welcomed him, come up the bank to the hotel. And his wife evidently was home with some of the kids and didn't get to come.
No.
And they drank so much that night that there's 2 different stories. One of the descendants, this Jones, who married into the family too, that's the grandson that's writing. I said that he came home and he was drinking a little bit too much and the wife was a little miffed and she wouldn't talk to him, so he had to tell the kids all about it. He woke them all up and told them about it. And this Wayne Jones from Houston, Texas, said that they had taken home the wheelbarrow.
Well,
so he's very colorful.
It must have been a good party.
Yes, but anyway, he was very wealthy. And one of the daughters married John T. Jones, who is Michael's son, Michael's only son, I think, that left, and inherited all of the wealth of Michael Jones. And her name was Hannah. They use that name so much. Hannah and Harriet. And Harriet Docker, this daughter, married John McKee Peoples.
Oh.
So that's the old man, you know, his associate came home in the wheelbarrow.
I see.
That's his, and they were very religious people, I have to add. I'll have to say they really, you know, were very well thought of. Especially John McKee Peoples and Thomas Ridgway. They both taught Sunday school. And very, of course, I could go on and on about Thomas Ridgway because, of course, he was Secretary of Treasury in the state. And when they built Southern Illinois University, old main building, when they dedicated that, Thomas Ridgway gave the address because he's president of the Southern Illinois University Board from Shawneetown. And he was recognized in banking circles because he's the first president of the Bankers Association. I hope I'm not, you know, this is, I talk off the top of my head some, but I've got, I think a good historian has to get a book and read from it, but that's the way I wrote it. I copy well.
Well, let's see, we got William Docker here pretty well nailed down. How about W.A.G. Posey?
Oh, you wouldn't get in the Posey family, would you? Because it's such a long story.
Well, what I'm trying to do
Okay,
is
that was-
associate one
that's
family
Thomas.
with another.
Okay.
That's something. See.
Wag, we call him. His name was Washington. He was the son of Thomas Posey, and Thomas Posey, of course, was he was fought in the Revolutionary War and was a very good friend of George Washington. And I hate to put it on tape, but see, there's always been the suggestion that he was a natural son of George Washington.
Well,
You haven't heard that. You have to come
no.
to Shawneetown to
Well.
hear it. I wouldn't dare put it in my book, so don't tape it that I have. But even the descendants, and there are many descendants in Kentucky. There are no descendants of the Posey family here, but they are in Kentucky because Thomas Posey, he lived next door on a plantation to George Washington, his family. And I showed you the, whatever the DAR call it, a big package, you know. The whole packet of the Posey family that goes back to France, and it was Posche or something. But Thomas, I've heard different versions, and there's been people, we've got a real good researcher here, Betty Head in Shawneetown, that likes to do research. But she doesn't for the historical society, she does it for her own because she says the public is too critical and she's not going to put her name out and get it chopped off. And I stick mine out all the time. But anyway, Thomas Posey was next door, and he's the way the Posey family listed him, he's a middle child of 5. And if you read George Washington, he paid for the schooling of Millie and a younger brother of Thomas. Millie was a sister, and they visited in the home all the time, went hunting together, and suffered all kinds of financial difficulties, and George Washington paid them off and bought the land and bought. And the other story is that, well, that mother would have been old, and most people don't think that that happened there. But they also had a bridge or a ferry or something. But the story was, and John Allen, the historian from Southern Illinois here, and he's dead now, of Lore and Legends, said that Thomas Posey was the son of Elizabeth Lloyd, the dark-eyed beauty often referred to by George Washington.
Yeah.
And he was only 16 years younger. It would happen when George was very young and when he was out surveying way out in the sticks, out in West Virginia or wherever. And some people associate that and I hear different stories, and saying that he married the gal, and the Washington family didn't want anybody in from the sticks. They brought the child to the home and had the neighbors to raise him. He's adopted. Well, anyway, that's enough about the parentage because it isn't terribly important. But anyway, Thomas Posey's son, I've got the whole story on it, but I couldn't recreate it because I haven't looked at it in a long time. But Wag was about the, I would say Washington Posey was the 3rd or 4th child. And let me look in here.
Then how did he...
And he married Washington Posey. Okay. Oh, well, he was also, he was a friend here in this room here. They started the Presbyterian Church in the parlor. And Wag was one of the, I call him Wag, that isn't his name. I don't know what they called him.
Yeah.
He was one of the organizers. He's the only guy, and there's about 7 women started the Presbyterian Church because Mrs. Marshall wanted it. And the Mrs. Posey, Mary Alexander Posey, was the second wife of Thomas and the mother of Wag. And now I've got 16 letters, and they are copied from up in Springfield. If you want a picture of the Posey family, read all of her letters she wrote to her son down in Winchester, Kentucky, William. And William was, some of that family was smart enough and kind enough to get them recorded and put in the library. And she tells all about, she tells how Shawneetown, now these are 18 and 16 and 18 and 18. Oh, Kirkpatrick, I want to look him up. I think cemetery records are pretty accurate. What they put on, sometimes the, okay, now this is going to be William Gatewood though, because it's equality. See, William Gatewood was over there and he taught at their Galton Academy, and he was a lawyer, and he went to the legislature and died in 1830. We've already said that once. But, and here's a Jacob Siddall, Siddall, in the Equality Cemetery, 1863, and died in 1945. So there's people in Equality will be able to tell you something about the Siddalls. And you might be able to see, one of the best sources over there is George McLean.
Okay.
You know, even on the telephone he can almost tell you. I don't know whether he's got a telephone. Yes, he's got a telephone.
Okay.
Okay, I was just looking, I ran into that name, Siddall. And I've got a John Kirkpatrick that's buried in Equality, 1793, and he died in 1872. That was who I was looking for, was Kirkpatrick.
Let's see, we've gotten down to Wag Posey
Okay.
on the list, so...
I was still looking on that other one too. Okay, let's see when I can give you when Posey, because he's buried out. He's buried out at Westwood. And Thomas Posey was buried in his daughter's flower garden, which is that cemetery.
Oh, I see.
And that was called, she married Joseph Street. That's Thomas Posey's youngest daughter, Eliza, married Joseph Street. And he's one of the first guys here in Shawneetown, too. And I think he might have come from Kentucky. But anyway, he was an Indian agent. Thomas Posey was the Indian agent in Vincennes, and I told you he came down the river and died. And Mary, the mother, lived out here at the cemetery. Have you seen
I haven't been out there, no.
Oh, you must see it. It's beautiful. And she tells how poor the town is, and can you imagine having dances and no churches, you know? And she was terribly upset. So I'm sure then that her son, you know, had a good background from the mother and the father, I suppose, that they must attend church. I'm looking at the word Posey. I know, I've got a page missing. No, it's turned around. Okay. Let's see where the Posies are. Now I've got Martha C. Siddall, 1798 to 1841, wife of John. But, yeah, that might be right. And then next to it, and which doesn't really mean anything, but on each side of the Siddall name, there's two camels above the Siddall, which means most of these records are copied, one right after the other, and oftentimes they are related. Elizabeth Camel was 1755 to 1825. These are some very early people. And Mary Otis Camel is below the name of Martha C. Siddall, 1794 to 1849. Mary Otis Camel. Okay, I'm supposed to be looking for Posey, and I've got to look back at my... I can't believe there's only... It's on 54. Okay, it's turned backwards. Okay, we got General Thomas Posey. He's buried out there. 1750 to 1818. He's in the War of Indians. Died in Shawneetown. And Thomas was his son. Died in 1849. And Washington Glassell, that's his second name, Wags.
Oh.
And I think that A was Alexander because the mother was Mary Alexander. But anyway, Washington Glassell was 1799 to 1843. And Alexander, the seventh son of General Posey, 1794 to 1840, he's the doctor. And he has a real long well here and it's very interesting because he tells who gets his books, who gets his gold watch, and you never saw so many names of Lucy, but that all came, Mary Frances and Lucy. There's a whole bunch of that family. Till you really get lost in it.
How about Timothy Guard?
Okay, he was the big salt maker.
Salt maker.
Oh, and in the census, you find that he has about 30 slaves. See, I'm just saying this without looking, but it just throws you. Because he was one of the, I would say that he was even a bigger salt maker and earlier than John Crenshaw, who built the big slave house. And Timothy Guard, I know there was a guard married Lucy Posey, but I don't know. That was a doctor. But let's see if Timothy Guard is buried in. He's got three. Wait a minute. The doctor's one's got 3 wives, and got them all 3 right side of him.
Well.
Can you beat that? Guard, 10 and 44. Okay. I really like the guy that wrote this, so I don't have to look in the cemetery. Now here is, I run into Camel, Nancy Camel, 1800 to 1833. These are some really old people. And it was in memory of her and Mary Ann. He's got 2 wives. 1815, 1838, consorts of William C. Camel. So he got his wives all lined up there. And here is James Siddall, Siddall, 1827 to 1846, son of John and Martha. We've run into Martha's once before, but that's John Siddall's son, 1827 to 1846. Okay, here, this is about right. T. Guard is all it's got, T. Died 1843. Come in. Hi. Hello. This is our gal.
We've torn up your area here.
Yes. He was having a little. Okay. We're just having a little interview, so you have to be quiet now. We won't even ask you how you are. T. Guard died 1843, age 61. So that's Timothy. Well, 61 years, 8 months, 12 days. And he died 1843. Mary M. Guard, who died 1840, age 45. Well, he's got 2 wives. He's got, my goodness, if he said Mary in his sleep, that'd be okay, because both wives were named Mary. Mary Guard, 1834. Age 37, and Mary M. Guard was age 45, consorts of Timothy. And that's Timothy B. and Parthena, wife of A.B. Let's see. I was looking for the doctor that had 3 wives side of him, and one of them was Lucy Posey that I don't see yet. That's all I have about Timothy. Only he was a salt maker, and he's bound to have been very well to do because he's one of the first ones. And they'd have, when they draw pictures of the salt making, they always draw Timothy Guard's furnace.
Oh, I see.
Because it's the very early one.
How about Daniel Wood?
Oh, that one I don't know. Because I don't know that when we get into the equality, there's so many woods in this that I hate to look. But I would say that, let's look in here and see if he is one of the first buyers. Daniel. I've got an Alfred Wood, James Wood, John Wood. We don't have Daniel.
How about General Rawlings?
Oh, yeah. Well, he had the Rawlings Hotel. Moses Rawlings. And I can tell you when he bought his lot, because he's October the 3rd, I think. And all the rest of them did in 1814. I think he was here that early, but we'll see. Oh my, look how much land he bought. See, in lots. See where
I see. My goodness.
But I'll look at the first one, because I know what number almost that, I think the Rawlings Hotel was on 1139. I would have to check that, but I think it was. Well, I've got Moses Rawlings paid $15.25 on October the 3rd for 1140. It's 1139 and 1140. And Michael Jones bought the 1139. But it went all the way through. I know I just read something on the, I know that's what the Rawlings Hotel was on. 1139, isn't it? But I think Michael Jones had it first. 1139, but 1140 is right behind it. It's marked. It's got a little black box for the hotel. You can tell it.
Down here.
Yes. No, that's the riverside.
No.
So would be this one. See, it's 1139.
I see. On the other end.
And Mike Jones got this corner one. Look what he got, the great big one. See, he bought that one. Oh, wait. Moses Rawlings bought 1140, and Mike Jones had this one. But the
one right next to it.
He finally bought it off of Jones and built it as early as 18 and 20. I just read the account on that Russell Burke wrote when we have a marker up there in front of the Rawlings Hotel, and I think he built it by 18 and 21.
Did he marry into any of the other families?
Not that I know about. I think he finally went. I read it out of the book, and I do not own the book, and it was too long since I read it. But I think he sold it rather soon, and the hotel then deteriorated soon after that, according to Russell Burke that wrote that too. He went to the Cairo area.
I see.
But he bought a lot of land here, according to this. And evidently he's not buried in our county either, because I can check that real fast. Rawlings, 38, 45. I'm saying that he isn't buried here. Maybe the man
Came home.
Maybe he came back to a good country again. For heaven's sake. He's in the Buck Cemetery, Moses Rawlings. And this had to be the guy. He died 1838 in his 53rd year.
Yeah.
After my saying that he died. Well, he did leave because, according to the book I read it in, but he came back, I guess. And then, let's see.
How about P. Redmond?
That's Parthenos.
Parthenos.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I can tell you, let's see. Well, look here. This will be quicker than my trying to find it anyplace else. He's supposed to be in Westwood Cemetery. Redmond. Here's a John L. Wagner that was here in 1801, died in 1838. W-A-G-G-E-N-E-R. Do you spell yours with it?
No, it's W-A-G-G-O-N-E-R, but his notes down at the bank are all the same as mine. He had slaves and stuff. There are several letters.
And here's a Harry L. that was born in 1877, Harry L. Wagner.
How does he spell his?
Same way. 1877, probably. And his wife, Elsie, also. She just died in 1942. I don't think maybe you would, the Wagners I knew you wouldn't want playing on. We're very disadvantaged. Okay, we even found Moses' wife. Moses has got a wife, Fatima.
What's the name?
Fatima, Fatima. There was, wait a minute. Oh, I'm looking at something else. Now, wait, that was wrong. That was McClernand. I was going to say that same name as McClernand. Henrietta. Henrietta is her name. 1808, died in 1833, consort of Moses. So that's Moses' wife. She
And
died
what
in
year did she
33.
die? 33.
Maybe that's when the guy left. When we say Moses died.
I didn't record the year. It was the 40s, so wasn't it?
Well,
I think you said the 40s.
okay.
I'm not trying to
No.
record the dates here. It'll be on the tape.
Right. But I'm thinking if they had Rawlings. And there was a Sarah, gosh, she's still older. Sarah Rawlings, 1793, and died in 1828. And of course, Moses was, I've got the cemetery records, and so does this gal. She can look up things like that. We have a lot of records here. We got all the census records.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got this cemetery record, so they come in here and pay and do research, don't they, Kathleen? And there was a Marshall Rawlings, 1835 to 1855. So that might have been their son. You know, by the mother being born in 1808, she'd have been 27, it would be likely. And it's buried in the area because they've got it right under Henrietta Rawlings.
Now, the Rawlings weren't connected in any way with the other families, the Poseys or the Ridgeways or any others, you know.
As far as I know, they weren't.
Okay, the next one on this list is Henrietta.
Oh,
Of
good.
course. I think we've said enough about him at the moment.
But he was the newspaper man. He was a lawyer, legislator, and of course, he married the second daughter, Mary. He married Mary Leach. Wait a minute, Marshall. The mother was Leach. Mary Leach, who was born in 1810. Henrietta, of course, I have a long list because it's on his cemetery. I guess this fellow that wrote this book, though, when he knew something about the family, I think he put it on. I don't believe it's all on the cemetery record. I can't believe it is, but maybe it is. Here, the father, Nathan Eddy, he died out here, and this is Elm Grove where you're going to visit. It's Kurt Taylor here. That's the summer home of Henrietta.
Oh, I see. Yes, I understood that.
And they've got the desk of Henrietta. Anyway, Nathan came from Plymouth, Massachusetts, and they got this wrong, said he died in 1943. It's 1843. His son Henry was born in Vermont, 1798, and he died in 1849. And his wife was Mary Jane Marshall. that was born 1810, died 1878. She's the daughter of John Marshall, and she was born at Vincennes, and she died at Alton Grove Farm. Mary Jane, that's Henry. She was Mary Jane Marshall here, and their son. Now, Elizabeth Taylor can tell you the line how it goes down. But anyway, one of their sons was an Eddie, and his daughter was a Myra Witterhole, and that's an aunt. Anyway, I believe Elizabeth Taylor's mother's name was Alice Eddy, and her mother died young anyhow, and that's why she lived with this aunt. And this aunt inherited all this from her father, and they own a lot of land, and so does the Taylors.
Okay, how about James C. Slough? How would he fit into the picture?
Okay, that's
The Black
that's
Sheep?
Thomas. No, he just had a few reverses in fortune. Maybe, I don't know.
Stand by.